There came a point when I just couldn't push through anymore. The pain from my 3 abortions finally caught up with me. The grief, the guilt, the constant striving to make up for what I'd done. I was emotionally drained, spiritually empty, and so far from God that I honestly believed He'd stopped reaching for me. I thought if I just stayed busy, worked harder, served more, achieved more, I could outrun that ache inside. But all that busyness only made me more exhausted and disconnected. What I didn't realize then was that slowing down, resting, and caring for myself wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. It was one of the ways God began to rebuild me from the inside out. Today, we're talking about one of the most overlooked paths of healing after abortion, to practice self-care. Specifically, we're talking about rest. Not just physical rest, but the kind that reaches your soul. Joining me today is my friend, Maya Sapp. She's an entrepreneur, wife, mom of 3, and a woman who understands the power of slowing down to truly live and heal. So Maya, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Jane.
So appreciate you. So let's dig in, first of all, with how you relate to this need for rest. Was there ever a time when you felt you were really drained and you needed something, but you weren't sure what it was?
Absolutely. I can just think back to when that was just a few months ago. And I got to a place where I just didn't know what to do. I was stuck. And everything that I knew to do, it just didn't work. I tried to sleep. I think that's what I went to the most. It's like, let me just take a nap. And then I'll wake up and I'll feel better. And I noticed that I didn't feel better. And I kept resorting to taking naps, to eating my favorite foods, watching my favorite shows, maybe even going out to get my nails done, doing my hair. Because, when you look good, you feel better.
Absolutely.
But I felt this void still deep in my heart. I just didn't feel okay. And I knew that something had to change.
And I can relate to that in the midst of my depression from my abortions, but just in life, everyday life, because we keep so busy. So, so what did you do, and what have you learned about? Those are helpful strategies of self-care. There's nothing wrong with what Maya's describing here, but what changed for you?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. In that moment when that crash happened in my life, I crashed too. I crashed too. And I think that is where I needed to be fully exhausted of all my different tactics of what I knew worked well, and for it not to go well, for me to truly feel what God wanted me to feel and to be in the place He wanted me to be, to find that rest. And I found myself trying to fill my tank back up, right? Like to get busy, because I'm a busy person.
Yes.
And being busy actually helps me in a way. But He said, I want you to rest. And I said, what? I don't need to start this new business or start this new initiative. He's like, no, I want you to rest. And so that's when I started to find His rest.
Wow.
And I started to find my time, build my sanctuary, right? Whether that was physical or mentally or emotionally, and find that place where I could just be honest and lay my broken pieces at His feet. And I allowed Him to put those pieces back together. I wasn't afraid. I had to be vulnerable, but I let Him put those pieces back together. And that's where my journey started. There's so many different things. I don't know if we're ready to dive into it yet, but that's where I started.
Yeah, let's dive in. And I relate to the broken pieces. I'm sure that we all can. And I love that you're talking about surrendering and not trying to do it in your own strength and figure it out.
Yeah.
So what did you learn about rest, and what did you do from there?
Yeah, so I learned that, one, rest is not something that I can fulfill and do on my own. I had to like you said, surrender, right? Surrender this piece that I am depleted and recognize when I feel depleted. And so one, spiritual rest. I had to learn that those wounds that cut deep, I had to go to the Father who was my healer, because he says he's also Jehovah Rapha. And I had to realize, even though it hurt, I had to not shield it from him. I had to bring it to him, naked, exposed, and just raw, right? And say, here I am, God, heal me. And I had to remind myself of who he was, the characteristics that he calls himself. He's a good father. He is our healer. And reminding myself that he is meek, he is kind, and he does love me, sinful, broken, dirty me. He loves me. And in fact, he calls me beautiful, and calls me loved. And so I had to remind myself of those characteristics and speak those positive affirmations of who he calls me to be. And so a lot of times we don't realize that our mind creates thousands of negative thoughts all on its own. The minute we wake up, we don't even have to try to think negatively. It just happens. And so we have to intentionally speak and think those positive thoughts. And where else, what other source to get it from is from his word and what he says. And that started to shift my mind. I had to start to retrain my thinking, right? Create those new neuron pathages in your brain, right? You have to intentionally create those patterns, but it's easy because he's already given you the roadmap. He's already given you the words. He's already given you his promises. It's there. You just have to remind yourself of those things. I also felt a lot of mental exhaustion. A lot of times we beat ourselves up. We're our own worst enemy, right? And when God has already told us we're forgiven, we think that what we've done, right, is unforgivable, right? And so we choose not to forgive ourselves, which is the worst thing, because is what we've done, is our sin greater than what he's already said we're forgiven for? Is it greater than his sacrifice on the cross? There's no way. It's almost like we're insulting him by saying, well, no. Like,
that's right.
What I've done is far too great. You know, that your death on the cross it wasn't good enough to cover this. And it's like, am I really saying that to him right now? The one who's redeemed me already? It's like, well, then something has to not be true. And it's probably my thoughts. Yeah. And so we have to think back and say, what is these thoughts that are draining me? Yes. When is it happening? Yes. You know, is it a certain point of day? Is it when I'm around a certain person, or maybe when I see a certain thing that is draining me? And then timing that and recognizing those moments. And in those moments, that's when you choose to fill yourself up. Right? Remind yourself or time it. It's like, this is when I'm going to need that mental break, right? Where I know that I'm going to have to give a little bit more energy to reminding myself of the wonderful person God has created me to be and the redeemed person I am in him. Yeah. And so part of what you're saying is a couple things. One is we have to be active in combating the condemnation or the thoughts that we have. And for those of us who've had abortion, we see the word murderer, baby killer thrown out. And that just cuts you to the quick. And the reality is that our child did die because of abortion, because of our decision. But that isn't where God leaves us, that we have an option to let that aside, to follow his son Jesus, who takes that sin from us so that we can rest in his mercy, rest in his grace. Absolutely. It's hard. Believe me, it takes a long time. So there's that spiritual rest. There's also that training of your thoughts. Yeah. And one of the things that was really helpful to me, it was an activity, but it was part of rest, is to journal those thoughts. Yeah. And that negative thinking, you might want to call it. And sometimes it was just getting that out there on a piece of paper or in in an app, and then just setting it down and saying, is this true? Yeah. And the Holy Spirit or God will always come forward. That's right. And correct that if I'm following Jesus,
and I've confessed my sins and I've repented of my abortion, he's taken that away from me.
That's right.
And when I don't carry that load, whew, I can rest and relax.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so tell me more.
Yeah, so again, I think as a person who has this trauma, right? From abortions, from anything that it's so heavy. I think that's why, to remind ourselves of the scripture, remember, that's why he said, hey, give me that burden. Take on my yoke. It's easy. It's light. And I think Jesus was so intentional about his words because he knew the burdens that we were going to carry, right? Just from day-to-day life. And then as a result of our sin. But he says, no, but I'm the beautiful exchange. Exchange that for me. And to realize we deserve it because he's given it to us in his promise. And I think that is the hard part. We feel like we don't deserve it. I'm such an evil person. There's no way. And that's that negative talk. That's that condemnation that the enemy wants us to stay at. He wants us to say, no, you're not worthy. No. You don't deserve rest. You, out of all people, no way. And to keep us stuck there, to keep us paralyzed, really. But God says, no. My blood redeemed that too. And you are still beautifully and wonderfully created. And you are not your sin. You're not your mistake. You're not your deepest regret. No. You're beautiful. And I have life for you. And my promise is yes and amen. My promise is for you to have life, but not just to have life, to have it abundantly. And I think that is one of the largest things I learned. We can live a life, right? But he wants us to live our best life in him. And how beautiful. Even after abortion, to live, that doesn't abort his plan for you, right?
Love it. No, it doesn't.
Because it can't. But we can allow it.
Yeah.
We can be the ones to step and say no and reject him. But God says, no, let me embrace me because I want you to live not just a good life. I want you to live the best life I have for you. And how beautiful is that to say one day when we leave this earth, we live the best life he wanted for us here.
Yeah.
Right?
So there's going to be women watching who get it. Yeah, they'll get into their Bible and they'll open it up. There'll be other women watching who are like, oh, I'm not so sure. And maybe others who are like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Sure.
So how do we get started if we're like, boy, I want to believe that. I want it to be so in my life. But man, I don't have the kind of faith that you have, Maya. How would you get us started on this sacred spiritual rest?
Yeah.
What would be some baby steps we could take?
Yeah, I would say, well, that's a good question, one, right? Because everyone is in different journeys in their life. I would say the first thing is to realize that you deserve it, right? No matter where you are, and that you can accomplish it and it can be achieved in your life. You're not too far from it. And to realize that even if you feel like your faith isn't to where someone else may be, because I wouldn't say that I have the highest or the grandest faith, but you only need a mustard seed, right?
A little bit.
And whether you believe it or not, it's still true, right? Because we can choose to agree, to disagree, or feel like we're not in a certain place, but that doesn't make it true. So it only takes a little bit. And you saying, I want that healing. I want that rest, right? I don't know how to accomplish it. It's to believe and to start that's where you want. And to start, if it's hard for you, to start and connect with somebody that you may feel like can uplift you, right? And I hope that you may have someone like that can speak life into you, to remind you of who you are, and start there. And then take those pieces and write your own gratitude journal I don't know.
Yeah.
Some people may already
Do you do that?
Oh, yeah, I do. And mainly, I don't necessarily do it as a continual piece, but when I find myself in a really hard place to pull myself out of, right?
Yeah.
Or if I know God's promise, but it's really hard for me, I just start with what I'm grateful for. In that day, in that moment, I might take a picture of something that ties in what really made me happy about that day, or what I really appreciated. And then I start to give thanks to God for those things. You know, even the little things. I may have woke up and the birds were chirping. It was just really beautiful. I may write that down and just thank God for life. Thank God for life around me. And then as you start to remind yourself and realize, man, I had a lot of great things in my day today. Or I was reminded of how great of a person I was. Start there. And I think as you build that confidence in who you are, then you'll begin to even lean in more to God. But take those baby steps. Take those baby steps. We realize He is your source. He is your biggest cheerleader. Lean into Him.
That's for sure. And, you know, for those of us who are healing after abortion, if you've been following my videos, you know that I am a big advocate for joining an abortion support group. And if you're a woman of faith, there are many great resources that are available to you. And if you're not one who's wants to pursue a faith-based track to healing, there are still great programs, and I put links in the description to that, because when we're in community with other women and men sharing their grief and their heartbreak and their shame and their anger around their abortion, we realize, hey, I'm not alone. Maybe I'm not as hopeless. Maybe I can get past this, because you hear of other people who have moved forward. And you know what? When that happens, that wasn't because of anything you did. I mean, you came to the group, that was your part, but God brought those people in. Right. God connected you. God put those words in their mouth to encourage you. And when you start seeing that happen, you take that little step of faith or trust, that risk to join a group, and then you have that experience in that group. Oh, well, maybe there is something to God loving me and wanting the best for me. And that's how, you know, we kind of cooperate with God's will for our life. I think that's important. Yeah.
Community is huge.
For sure. Yeah. So Maya, for everyone watching, I want you to, I want my, see where I am. Okay. So for everyone watching, I want you to take just a little bit of time this week and ask yourself 2 questions. The first question is, where am I missing rest right now?
That's good.
And the second question is, where do I feel most empty? And what might restoration, or what might fill that emptiness up for me? Give it some thought, reflect over it, just let it kind of sit for a while. Because, you know, rest isn't selfish. As you put it so beautifully, Maya, rest is sacred. Yeah. It's part of how God heals us.
That's right. And you don't need to wait for someone to give you permission to do it.
That's right.
You know, sometimes we wait for someone to endorse it or say, yeah, you go, and you might not get that, but just know that you deserve it.
Yeah, for sure. So Maya, before we wrap up, is there one thing that you'd like to leave with the women watching? Yes, a reminder, something that, you know, they can take away.
Absolutely. Again, just to reiterate, you don't have to feel bad. Don't feel bad, actually, for needing to rest. With the world that we live around is such a go, 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 go. And we feel bad sometimes to just say, wait, I'm not okay. And to dive deeper into that is okay. And remember that God doesn't want you to just live life here, right? He wants you to live the best life He has for you. And you should want to live that best life too. So I would leave you with that. And God bless you. And I know that this journey is going to be amazing. And I can't wait to hear all the great stories that you're going to hear from folks about the rest.
And I hope, and so drop a comment. If you have questions for Maya, we'll be watching the comments and we'll answer those for you. That was so beautiful. Everything that you've said, so important. Thank you so much.
Amazing.
And I hope that everyone watching will take what Maya's had to say to heart. You know, for so many of us who've walked through the pain of abortion, rest can feel impossible, or like you said, just we're not worthy of it. We've carried so much guilt and fear and the pressure to prove we're okay. But rest is one of God's greatest invitations, not to do more, but to let Him heal more. And when we finally slow down enough to breathe, to be honest, to get help, to be honest about how tired we really are, that's where healing begins to take root. And that's when peace becomes possible again. If you take one thing from today's conversation, let it be this: you don't have to earn rest.
That's right.
You were designed for it. It's how God renews your body, quiets your mind, and restores your soul. If our conversation has sparked your interest to learn more about the 5 paths to heal after abortion, this video will get you started, and I hope to see you there.